Hey the YouTube Ghost Jake here with you today. How you doing today? I'm doing good. I just got done watching. I found something to review on Netflix. I just got done watching Dracula episode 1 on Netflix. Don't know when it aired, but it says it aired in sometime 2020. But I think it aired sometime after The Witcher 3. I mean, not after The Witcher 3, after The Witcher. Because I remember after I finished my Witcher reviews, just one day it was on there. I just can't remember what day it was. But let's get this started. I gotta try to be kind of quiet because it's like 10:30 where I live at night, and it got done with taking notes. It got done a lot later than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so let's start. Now this opens up in the country of Hungary, and the timeline for at least episode 1 is in 1897, and Sister Agatha visits a man named Jonathan Harker. Now Harker was in Transylvania. He apparently was in Transylvania for a period of time, and he ran in terror of. At this point, we don't know who he ran in terror of, but the show is called Dracula, and so we probably know he ran in terror from Dracula, right? And Sister Agatha wants to know, for some reason, Sister Agatha wants to know if Jonathan had sexual intercourse with Count Dracula for some reason, and don't know why. And we also get introduced to this girl named, not really introduced, but this girl named Mina Murray, and it turns out Mina Murray is Jonathan's fiance at the time, right? Now, and pretty much after that, the credits roll, about Dracula, and then we end up in Transylvania. And Transylvania, so it goes into the past because the Jonathan Harker, and we meet at the very beginning. It's like all old and withered, right? So in this Jonathan Harker, after the opening credits in Transylvania, he's young, right? He arrives at Count Dracula's castle, and these people in a carriage that that's driving him to Dracula's castle stops at this road. It says, "We're not going any further," so they obviously know what's going on, right? And so while eventually Jonathan arrives at Count Dracula's castle in Transylvania. He sees that's when we see Dracula for the very first time, right? And Dracula, when we see him, Dracula is an old man, right? And excuse me, Dracula is an old man, and then we see him. We see him talking to Jonathan Harker while they're at dinner, while he's at Count Dracula's castle, and then all of a sudden Dracula is making him stay an entire month in Count Dracula's room, in the castle. An entire month, and it just seems like Dracula, Dracula, since he's an old man right now, he obviously has to get himself young. So he's going to obviously, drink his blood or drain him or absorb his life force to make himself young. In Harker's room, we see the old Dracula. he knows thoughts of Harker that he shouldn't know. Like there's one instance where Dracula destroys a mirror, probably to for the reflection, and he also like there's and there's also a scene where Jonathan cuts himself on the mirror, picking it up the pieces that Dracula broke, and and um, and blood drips onto the table, and you see Dracula's fangs come out. So that's actually really cool, right? And then Count Dracula actually says something interesting. He says, "Blood is lives." So what does he mean by that? The more people he eats or drinks, that's how he's staying immortal. He's essentially trading, draining them, trading their and getting young from when he gets old, right? Then at the next dinner, this is another thing that's very interesting. At the very next dinner, when we see Dracula again, Dracula appears to be younger. His hands seem to be younger. He's not using a cane anymore. And each time we see him, because we see him in multiple shots, each dinner, Dracula keeps getting older, while Jonathan, on the other hand, Jonathan Harker keeps getting older. So about Dracula draining life force from Harker, that theory is looking very, very good. Right, by drinking blood, draining into life force, sends him getting older. Right now, Harker is doing some investigating. Doing some investigating throughout the castle, and one thing he finds a very interesting discovery. Very, very interesting discovery. He finds everyone else's stuff. The people who stayed at Count Dracula's palace or castle before Jonathan Harker, and he finds all their stuff and nobody else's stuff, and finds all their stuff and and not them, right? Because they are dead or long. But another thing is, in one of the crates Jonathan Harker opens, he finds this like drained body in it, like that's been decaying for some time, and then all of a sudden multiple body, and that one body comes back to life. The eye opens, and multiple undead or zombies. Zombies are undead, but you know what I mean. Some undead zombies were attacking him. Right now, another interesting thing is, and Dracula, while Jonathan is running from the zombies, he stumbles upon Dracula's crypt, and Dracula's inside of it. And Dracula is, pretty pissed off, but he does it in a way that makes it think that Jonathan's dreaming. Because all of a sudden you see Jonathan in a by the fireplace with Dracula sitting down. And by the time we see this Dracula, he is fully young again. Right? Fully young again. And a lot of these different times, as Sister Agatha and everyone are still interviewing John Hecker. It switches between the past when he was there and the present timeline while he wasn't there. Right? Even though it's not even going that back far, it's going back, weeks, a month at the most. Right? And all of a sudden Jonathan gets this stupid wild idea that he's going to kill Count Dracula. All I will say is good luck with that. Right? Anyway, while he's searching for answers how to kill Dracula, he finds this lady in a box who can somehow speak English, and apparently this lady is a vampire. But before that, another interesting thing is I forgot to write down. I just remembered it because I wrote the thing after it. The thing I'll forget to write down while Jonathan is pretty much an old man at this point. Dracula is pretty much saying, okay, you're going to write 3 letters to your fiance saying you're done with your job, you're getting ready to leave, and you're leaving, right? And he's what were the dates? He said like the 7th or something, the 7th or the 12th. Then he said the 19th and the 29th. So, and he wants to write all those letters in advance to his wife. And also there's a baby in the room. Right now, another interesting thing is, okay, now back to the thing with the vampire lady. Like the vampire lady is speaking English, plain English, and right, and the vampire later bites Harker in the neck, and then the vampire lady ends up putting Harker in the box she was in. Now Jonathan Harker also notices the baby still in the crib, and the baby is starts crawling at him, and the baby has fangs. The baby turned into a vampire. And then all of a sudden, Dracula empties the box. Not empties the box, but he opens the box, right? And he opens the box and he pulls Jonathan Harker out of the box. And then he sees the baby. He's like, oh, interesting. But another thing interesting is that vampire lady is one of Count Dracula's brides. And he killed her to test a legend, right? And I believe he said after he killed her, he only has 3 brides left. And the reason why he has brides, because Harker, referenced it, is because he is trying to, breed, trying to make more vampires. And it's kind of hard when he's the only one. I guess that means the only male, but you know what I mean. Now, another interesting thing is at the now I took a lot of notes with this, right, guys, but I also wanted to watch the series, so I probably didn't take and I probably didn't take as much notes as I probably should have, but still the show was I really enjoyed the show. Okay, now where was I? Okay, I was at the legend. And okay. Dracula also mentioned that yes, I'm going to kill you. And that's what he said to Jonathan Harker. And Jonathan Harker says Jonathan Harker is it's pretty much done. And now another interesting thing is that at the convent or the church, they go over through Jonathan's notes, the older Jonathan's notes, right? And the account of Dracula's castle, the book he wrote, turns out not to be a book at all. It's like an obsession with Dracula. They say Dracula is God. Dracula, is everything. This guy is obsessed, so Dracula did something to John. But Dracula ended back at the castle. Dracula ended up killing John, and John is an undead, right? John is an undead, and now apparently here's another thing that's happened. Sunlight. There's this pretty cool scene when Jonathan woke up from being killed. right? When we woke up from being killed, he's standing on this, about ready to jump off the castle, and they think he's afraid of the cross. Now that could be true, but here's an interesting thing, though. While Jonathan was recalling to see what happened, the cross shined on Dracula's face, and he, kind of, groaned in pain. But also, there was a mix of sunlight and the cross, so that could be something in the two other episodes, right? And Sister Agatha and everyone thinks that the cross has something to do with that. Right now, another thing interesting is Dracula pretty much goes and attacks the church and where John is staying, and pretty much attacks the church where John is staying, and Sister Agatha knows, pretty much, who he is, because another thing is John is in a wolf form, not like a bat form, so that could be interesting with this version of events, right? And apparently Dracula has to be invited into the church, or he can't go in there. Someone has to invite him in, right? And at this point, John pretty knows what's going on. He's pretty much turning into a vampire at this point, right? And John tries to kill himself in order to protect Mina, right? Because Mina was bleeding, and John is losing the fight, and his fangs start to, and Jonathan's fangs start to, descend. And Jonathan was pretty much, I'm going to, take the cross. But it turns out that him killing, we'll get to that later, because they don't know, everyone thinks John is dead. And now, here's another thing interesting. Dracula is having a cool conversation with Agatha. Like he tastes her blood because he puts it on a knife, right? And he's Dracula getting information from her blood. And it turns out that Agatha is a Van Helsing, or is part of the Van Helsing family. We don't really know 100% yet, because I've only watched episode 1 and I haven't watched episode 2. And after they all leave, right? After they all leave and go back into the church, Dracula climbs up this window, and he sees John laying on the floor, and he's like, John, Johnny, right? And then all of a sudden Jonathan wakes up, and Dracula pretty much lets it be known that that you are going to have to pretty much let you know that suicide doesn't work. Someone has to do the deed, kill you. And now Dracula is now John, pretty much invites Dracula into the church, and Dracula kills Mother Superior with a sword and cuts off her head, and her head goes rolling. Not really goes rolling, actually. Then my bad. He just grabs it, and he pretty much tosses it, like a bouquet of flowers. It's like, okay, who's next? Whoever catches it, that's who I'm going to kill next. And pretty much, he kills everyone in the convent. But another thing interesting is the way he does it. Like he can't personally do the deed because they're all holding the cross. So the thing about him being scared of crosses is apparently true. But the way how he does it is he can control wolves, and a bunch of wolves come storming into the convent, and the wolves kill all the nuns. Right now the final. We're getting close to the final scene. Now with the final scene, we see John, walking into the where Mina is and Sister Agatha is. Now, Sister Agatha is in love with John, and she invites him in. Right now, big difference right here. She invites him in. She notices one big difference. John has blue eyes, right? And guess what? His eyes weren't blue. So Dracula ends up was wearing John like a mask and like a bodysuit, and then and pretty much comes out of him and pretty much looks at Mina. It's like, oh, I've been dying to meet you. And that is pretty much when the credits roll. That is the end of Dracula. I hope you liked the series. I'm planning on doing the final 2 episodes. Because there's only 3 episodes on Netflix, and I just got to figure out a better recording time how to do them because they're long videos. Well, anyway, guys, this is Ghost Jake signing off. I shall see you guys maybe tomorrow, but definitely Friday if I don't get around to watching Dracula episode 2 on Friday. Have a wonderful night or day depending where you are in the world. Goodbye.